Hey, what's going on, No Nation? CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. I'm going to speak about the linebackers going into our spring positional breakdown as we get into the meat of the defensive side of the ball. Before we get started, make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. Again, like this video, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't joined the DoakTalk community. We're going to be hitting you guys from all cylinders, on-field play, recruiting, whatever it may be, new facility updates, Doak Campbell Stadium updates, interviews. Just had Michael Alfred on. We have Corey Fuller that's going to be dropping pretty soon as well, and other former players that have played at FSU. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're going to jump right into it and talk about the linebackers for FSU. And the first linebacker I want to talk about is Omar Graham, standing at 6'1", 228 pounds, red shirt junior from South Florida. If you're talking about just going back to the season opener for 2000 and for the 2024 season against Georgia Tech, Omar Graham probably played the worst game that I can remember at the linebacker position for Florida State Seminole. He was just played pretty bad against Georgia Tech, if we're being quite honest. Long story short, if you watch the entirety of the season and watch Omar Graham from game one to the last game of the season, the second half of the season to the last game of the season, it's like night and day. We're talking about a completely different player, 180. This is what you want in the player in regards to what you say, respond, right? You had a bad game, a bad start, whatever it may be. You watch film, you break down your mistakes, you learn from them and get better week after week, and take on the challenge, so to speak, instead of tucking your tail and pretty much burying yourself within the situation, rising to the occasion. That's exactly what Omar Graham did, man. So I have nothing but respect. Shout out to Omar Graham. Played hell. I'm a guy that pretty much keeps it 100 on both ends. I give props when they're doing. Omar Graham played amazing down the stretch for FSU. Led the team in tackles from the linebacker position. I'm really excited. And of course, it was just his redshirt sophomore year last year as well, too. Still young. So coming into his redshirt junior year, he's the most experienced linebacker FSU has returning, especially from a guy that hasn't been in the transfer portal, has been pretty much groomed within the program. From, like I said, just a recruiter from Mike Norvell, understands what Mike Norvell wants within the program at FSU. So I'm really excited to see what Omar Graham does transitioning into a leadership role, so to speak, and kind of building on his strong performance at the second half of the season last year. This position group is going to be interesting. This may be from a competition standpoint. This is going to be a pivotal spring for the linebackers because I think it's open season for those three spots and, of course, some key backup spots. A lot of guys are going to be competing for playing time, starting positions, and key backup roles. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because FSU brought in a few linebackers within the transfer portal. I'm going to touch on some of those right now. The first one to speak of is Caleb Lavelli. He has 3 years left to play, transfer linebacker from North Carolina. He is from Georgia. Had 14 tackles during this past season for North Carolina. Doesn't seem like a lot, right? None of those tackles came in a bowl game, which was his first start of the season. And he was pretty much the star of that bowl game. Was flying left and right from North Carolina, showed a lot of flashes, athletic ability, physical at the point of attack, shot gaps. He looked really good in that bowl game and was pretty much tapped to be, I guess you could say, next up for North Carolina in regards to being a starting linebacker, standing out for those guys, that type of deal. Ended up transferring to FSU. Really good gift for FSU. He has 3 years left to play. A lot of athletic ability, physical at the point of attack. We'll see how he transitions coming from North Carolina to FSU in his new system with Tony White. But Caleb Lavelli is a guy to watch out for. Elijah Herring was pretty much we end up transferring out of got transfer linebacker from Memphis. I don't like using the word must get, but he was a must get type of player for FSU in regards to a linebacker need. He checks all the boxes. Had over 150 plus tackles within his career thus far, going into his senior year. 15 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions. I mean, he was the leading tackler for not Tennessee. My apologies, leading tackler. I want to say he was second or third on the team in sacks. Don't quote me with that, for Memphis this past season as well. But before Memphis, he transferred. Well, I guess to give the full story, he started out at Tennessee, transferred to Memphis, now Florida State. So before Memphis, he transferred from Tennessee. He led the Tennessee Volunteers in tackles as well during his sophomore year. A big-time playmaker, has SEC experience. This is a kid, like I said, it's going to be a lot of competition within the linebacker room, and I don't want to pull out any guarantees, but if I was a betting man, I would definitely put some money on Elijah Herring being one of the starting linebackers for FSU and making a big impact for FSU for this 2025 season. We'll see how, of course, spring practice goes for Elijah. Stephon Thomas is another veteran linebacker that FSU added via the transfer portal from Nebraska. And this is an interesting one as well. FSU is his third transfer spot. He transferred from Syracuse to Nebraska to FSU. Why is that important? 3 stops, right? Tony White, defensive coordinator. He was a defensive coordinator at Syracuse, then Nebraska, then FSU. Pretty much Stephon Thomas followed Tony White throughout his career. He's very familiar with the system, knows the system inside out. Like I said, this is his third stop with defensive coordinator Tony White within the same system. For his career, he had 199 tackles, 21 tackles for loss, and 10 and a half sacks. Pretty damn good. A lot of production throughout his career. Like I said, a veteran type of guy. He's been around the program, been around the system, or been around the system rather, hasn't been around the FSU program, but been around Tony White's system. So a veteran guy that understands the system. I think this is a pretty good get for FSU with all things considered. Speak about Blake Nicholson, the junior, going into his junior year, physical linebacker, athletic. As you guys remember, going into his recruiting cycle, he was a 4-star kid, ran a 4-4, played both ways, linebacker and running back in high school. But he was mainly a running back in high school, was kind of new to the linebacker position. So it was a lot of learning curves and growing curves for Blake Nicholson. I thought he thought too much at certain times, and when thinking, his reaction time was a lot slower. Whenever Blake Nicholson pretty much had one read, and that was just to go and make a play or shoot a gap or something along those lines, he was pretty effective. You saw the speed, and you saw the physical nature. But when it came to reading and things like that, it was a little bit of struggle. Now, again, it was his true sophomore year last year. So this is a big spring practice for Blake Nicholson. I think he needs to take that next step now as he is an upperclassman. The athletic traits are there. Now just putting everything together from a thinking standpoint, understanding the game and understanding the nuances of playing linebacker, we'll see if that develops for Blake Nicholson. If that does develop for him, I think he could be a hell of a player. So we'll see how that plays out. This spring practice is huge for Blake Nicholson going into his junior year. And like I said, playing time it's a lot of competition in regards to this linebacker spot. So it's going to be a very big spring for Blake Nicholson. Justin Cryer, this is another one that was pretty much going into his junior year. Justin Cryer was turning into a team leader prior to his season-ending injury versus North Carolina. Had 32 tackles on the team. What he lacks in athleticism, he makes up in football savvy and football smarts. Kind of going back to what I was saying about Blake Nicholson. It's kind of like the kind of opposite when it comes to Justin Cryer. I feel like Justin Cryer lacks athletic ability in certain areas, but he's pretty much damn near always in the right spots, makes the right reads and things like that. Want to see if he can continue to get better and develop things like that in regards to this new system. Athletically, it's not going to really change for Justin Cryer, but the more reps you get, the more comfortable you get with playing football. And just like I said, the more reps and experience you get along with that football savvy, you could compensate for certain things. So this is a big spring for Justin Cryer. We'll see if he's fully healthy coming off that injury as well. All right, so we're going to get to some younger guys wrap up the linebacker position and just see how they transition and want to continue for these guys to get better as well. Tamir Hickman and Jaden Parrish, 2 guys that redshirted this past season for FSU. Now it's time to see. So they understood. They went through a full season at FSU. You see the speed of the game and things like that. Now you're going to continue to develop physically and start making some plays and try to make an impact and try to, make a stamp and make their name felt for some playing time for FSU for this upcoming season. Last one to speak about is Ethan Pritchard, true freshman linebacker from Sanford, ended up enrolling early for FSU. I need Ethan, for the most part, just to keep developing, getting stronger with Coach Storms, understand the physicalness of the game, and get acclimated to the speed of the game as well. It's just going to be flying fast bullets and live bullets once those pads come on and people start moving around and communication and things like that. So I just want Pritchard rather just to keep developing and keep getting stronger and see how he transitions in spring practice. It's more so just learning how the system goes at FSU, getting familiar with it, and getting stronger. When these kids enroll early, of course, you have the advantage going through spring practice, getting those 15 practices and that leg up. This is why I feel like it'll be beneficial for a guy like Ethan Pritchard. So that's what we'll wrap up the linebacker position there. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Like I stated, we'll wrap it up with the defensive backs. My favorite, the best athletes on the field, the defensive backs. We'll wrap it up with that video, and then we'll get started with spring practice coverage. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.